Вітання, доброго дня.
Good afternoon. Today we have an informal and unofficial format of meeting, but it is important anyway. We gathered here because it is important to change something so that IT business feel comfortable, investors feel comfortable, and I would like us to name this briefing as a protection of business, not only IT businesses, but all other businesses in Ukraine. Why IT sector is important for Ukraine? This is not surprising. It is important that this business develop, and it is to be protected, and nobody should prevent it from doing business. In IT sector, 100,000 persons are working, and it develops at the fastest pace in Ukraine. But last year, more than 20 attacks happened on the IT companies. This makes investors afraid, and the IT businesses to be afraid of law enforcement system. But I do not want to take the words from mouths of other panelists today. So I would like to tell you about one draft law which will be specifically focused on protection of IT enterprises. Here we can see the Mr. Dmytro Shymkiv, deputy head of the presidential administration, who has been always protecting IT sector. We should understand that modern technology, state of the art, is one of the drivers of progress in the society, and the factor to attract investments in Ukraine. This sector is more than 30% in GDP last year, and large investments. In 2015, we saw George Soros invested his first economic investment into Tsekum, and we saw mergers by Oracle, Maximizer, and examples of EBRD investments, and examples of international venture funds investments into such institutions, and augmented pixels and other companies. At the same time, we have facts when law enforcement bodies not always behave correctly when they conduct inspections. Last year there were many situations when they became a kind of public scandals, and the draft law which we are discussing today, it will allow accelerating solutions to this problem, which we are sure the law will help to address, to resolve. Now the law goes that this is the court who should issue a request for inspection. So law enforcement bodies will not be able to inspect and seize computers from IT companies without the court's decision. Ukrainian providers, by some strange reason, separatist sources are found there, and the security service of Ukraine do their best to clean them from Ukrainian platforms, because it is very surprising that sometimes they are placed there. So between this industry and the state, the problem should be addressed. The business should be protected by lawmaking efforts, by passing in the parliament of the relevant laws and ensuring protection of this industry. We have powerful information and communication sector which should be engaged in lawmaking process and support to combating separatism and cyber threat and use of Ukrainian providers for cyber attacks. So we expect cooperation. Thank you. And now we are giving the floor to Oleksandr Danchenko, who seems to be one of the most active supporters and defenders of communications and IT sector. He knows best than everyone what is tax on IT business. The topic is very important. No pressure on businesses allowable can be allowed. We have very much PR. Some statements are used in the internet resources, but something should be done to address this problem. How to address them? What kinds of solutions can we find? What should be done? This is a draft law on cyber protection, on cyber security. It should give the answers to many questions and to separate responsibilities, and the draft law has already been registered, which would allow to protect businesses once it is passed in the Verkhovna Rada. I hope that me and my colleagues and peers will help to pass this law as soon as possible. The third question is, last week at the committee's website, it was elucidated once again that for 2 previous years, in this sector, we asked within 10 days provided documents about every attack which happened to every IT company. So every IT company victim whose servers had been seized, they are now welcome to submit documents. After that, we will study every case again, and we will refer the documents to the Ministry of Internal Affairs so that they provide to the Verkhovna Rada the response why they seized servers, because seizure of servers, this is a catastrophe for IT business. This means that it would hardly be possible to restore the activities of this IT company. It's the same as taking a blast furnace from a metallurgical plant. So I address everyone again now from this stage. Every IT company who suffers suffered any attack, I'm asking you now to submit your documents, and in every case we will ask from law enforcement bodies why did they do that and who is guilty, and after that the issue will be addressed to who to punish for those attacks. The IT industry should development should be promoted as well as investment in this industry. Unfortunately, we do not have enough legislation and financial lacking finances of our services who can't conduct online inspections and examinations. They are also the questions that should be addressed by the state in the conditions of war. The attack on Oblenergos, it shows us how IT industry should develop. Russian informational forces just attacked and hacked and ruined the defense of Ukrainian electricity system. Just think what would have happened if those were nuclear power plants, but not just electricity power supply system. So as concerns those journalists who take parts of phrases from the context, my phrase to the security service officer, it also included the question to the security service officer. We will address every case, and within 3 weeks we will provide to every IT company victim of attacks the response why those attacks took place. So now the new law will protect IT companies from any inspections with attacks, and also we will ensure stocks, necessary inventory to the our law enforcement officers. I support Dmytro Shymkiv that we are in the state of war, and we should find the way for cooperation between businesses and the government. Thank you.
There are examples when business don't say that they suffered, and we should show facts when these actions, illegal actions, were carried out. And there are 35 different funds, and investors, they should say that they suffered, and the entrepreneurs also should say this. If they say that there are some illegal actions, but it's very difficult to defend them if they don't show real facts. We invite all the market not only to write that we heard that something happened, but they should provide proper documents. They should describe the situation, what equipment was seized, and the results. So we are waiting for the information. So you should send proper information, and if you don't send this document, you won't get results. There were some situations, so we reacted on the seizure. We brought people, and SBU came, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and only General Prosecutor's Office didn't come. But there were no confiscation of service in some cases. So if you have problems, you should speak openly about them. And in 3 hours, some questions were solved, but we should be open if you need help. So please ask for help and show the documents. Thank you. I believe that it's very important that law enforcers were able to carry out searches and not search in the pockets of people for some service. So you are, we believe that this is a systemic problem. In the Ministry of Justice, we have a strategy to help business to overcome the obstacles and to simplify the business. With the help of the Supreme Council, we implement decentralization and demobilization of our registration services that were corrupt and not good in use for our citizens. So about IT sector, we should have cyber security here in the state. It's like anti-aircraft defense. Technology develop, and we know that there is an occupation state, and we should defend ourselves against them. And in Georgia, in 2008, we were not ready, and we lost a lot then. And after the war, we started to build our defense in IT sector, and we have results. And the state interest also includes the interest of people. And I don't understand when some person, official, comes and disturb the business, not even IT business, but any business, because we have a lot of different institutions that test the borscht, and those people who cook this borscht, the quality falls, but there are some documents that this borscht is very tasty. So we will support the draft law and all the progressive steps that will be taken in order to simplify business. And also we should think about cyber security in our country. Thank you. We have a draft law that was submitted by IT committee and I want to tell you that the first name under this draft law number 3719, there was a team of experts who worked on this draft law in order to solve this problem on the legislative level. And we look at previous experience of the last year. We witnessed a lot of masked people in IT companies who confiscated equipment. Law enforcement officers, sometimes they abuse their rights and to confiscate the servers, mobile devices, under the pretext of national security. And I fully agree with Mr. Shymkiv and Oleksandr that when we are in our security is threatened by aggressor, Russian Federation. And here the problem, it's like two ends of the stick. First, we should defend our security, including not only military factor, but also in the sphere of IT. And I also believe that IT sector is one of the most important for the development of Ukrainian economy. And we saw this abuse of their powers by the security officers, and also there was some changes were developed to be introduced in the code in order to adhere to European practices of carrying out such searches. And of course, this draft law not only deals with IT, but other business that can be threatened by such actions. When we analyzed the situation, we found out 5 problems. These are ungrounded searches. The second problem is ungrounded seizure of information systems of its parts. The third problem is that searches did not the seizure did not correspond the purpose of the search. So they should have confiscated one server, and they confiscated other equipment as well. And the fourth is that there is excessive use of special means, and they wear masks in the course of this search, and also they do not allow lawyers, advocates to be present in the course of the searches. So this draft law regulates these issues to introduce some changes in the code, and when these searches will be carried out, there should be a lawyer in any stage of the search, not like today, that he is present only after some investigative actions were taken. Also, special means are not allowed, like some masks for law enforcement officers, but maybe in some there is a category of crimes where these special means are needed. Also, by this draft law, we regulate that in the course of the search, there should be copying of servers, not their confiscation, but formally, if it is not possible to copy, in that case, they can seize the equipment, but they should motivate their actions why the copying is not enough in order to get the volume of information that is needed for the investigation. And this decision will be taken not by the investigator or prosecutor, but by the judge. And by this draft law, we try to defend the IT sphere and business that needs investment. And we understand that cybersecurity is needed, as Mr. Shymkiv told us and Oleksandr, especially in the state where our country is now. Thank you.
I would like to underline that the draft law has been registered, so we just wait for it to pass the vote. And not everything depends on me and Oleksandr. Will be about 10 signatories under this draft law text, so we will put all possible efforts from our side so that it passes all other committees of the Verkhovna Rada. I am a member of the Justice Committee, the Verkhovna Rada, and I will talk to the head of the other committee, Mr. Kozhemyakin, so that their committee will fast consider this draft law, so we very fast start considering it at the parliament and pass it. I would also ask the reconciliation meeting so that this draft law is put on the agenda of votings in the parliament as soon as possible. I would like to add this draft law makes a foundation for law enforcement bodies how to operate, but we also should help law enforcement bodies to resolve the issues of their law enforcement activity. This is training of our law enforcement officers and IT industry especially. They are very keen in this. And we have very powerful associations in Ukraine, and we hope that associations not only lobby the industrial interests but also engage the industry into cooperation with the state, because the security of information resources and service will help to address investment raising, because intellectual property protection issues, also servers preservation in illegal situations. They are the facts which frighten the investments. So if this issue is addressed and resolved, this will help, and I call not only on lawmakers, not only on executive authorities, but also on the civil society and the IT Companies Association. Cooperation of the IT industry and government are important. For example, here are several examples how internet providers should have acted when they can find themselves that in IP space of Ukrainian internet there are resources promoting separatism. No super experts are required, just some NGO which fights separatism. For example, these experts can assess just inside the industry and to regulate the issues inside the industry. One of forms of IT business is online finance, and we understand that there are some organizations who rejected financial transactions with the territory occupied by separatists. Other IT companies continue their activities via their dealers, thus funding, being middlemen in transactions with separatism. This is a violation of the law. This matters. This is our call to law enforcement officers and both to the IT industry. Law enforcement officers should be more transparent in their actions. There are some facts which are seen by experts, and these facts should be explained. Oleksandr is doing a good job building this cooperation between the IT industry, lawmakers, and executive authorities. We have such an organization, ICT Competence Center, where 7 IT enterprises. I would like to say on our part, if we can help with training law enforcement officers. We have resources to provide such trainings for law enforcement officers so that they do not search for IP addresses in the pockets. Dear colleagues, we have time for questions. You are welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to ask the question. My name is Valiev. I am a director of association you mentioned today. I have questions using special terminology. I have a question to Mr. Shymkiv. As concern engagement of cyber police, we are for providing our trainers. We provided to HR our applicants. Then we found out that the HR personnel had only 15 minutes for interview. So we understood that it was a non-professional selection. So we had an example of synergy, but it was a bad example. And we are willing to work with the Georgian reformators in the police. We will be very glad to cooperate. As concerns the case which you mentioned, the servers have not been seized, but 6 PCs have been seized. We have a judicial decision. We will provide it to you in response to your request. Thank you to the Verkhovna Rada and to you in person and to parliamentary majority who intervened in those situations. After 2 months, the servers were returned to IT company. This means a collapse for that IT company. So we should have requested the MPs to ask for their help. This is legal, and the last offer, the last proposal on this matter, this data copying question, it should be addressed by the law. If people receive some governmental contracts in 1 month or 2, all agencies which have functions of conducting inspections, they will come to such an enterprise in 1 month after starting performance of this contract. I would like to answer. We have, in fact, 2 main spheres, areas where law enforcement actions takes place. They are security matters. This is hosting of separatist websites or use of Ukrainian providers by separatists. This is like a room in which we do not know what is happening. When the country is in the state of war and our soldiers defend our country, and the other part of the country saying we are providing some rooms for rent and nobody can intervene with our activities. When you rent your room and some violations of law happens in this room and your neighbors are calling to you saying that something bad is happening in your room, this is illegal. The industry should understand that if hosting takes place, there is an IP address, it would be good if internet provider resolves this issue himself, because otherwise the state should intrude and intervene with his activities, because the state doesn't want that separatist blogs or other resources are hosted at Ukrainian website. This is is a very big part. It concerns financial transactions as well. The second question is the tax inspection bodies, for some strange reason, they started the issue. They look into the model of relations in outsourcing industry or IT industry. They look into transactions, and for some reason they decide that this is money laundering. So elucidation work is very important, and not only court's decision and the parliamentary decisions are important. We also should achieve the Supreme Court's decisions, giving definition how the courts should behave when someone requests them to seize the servers or other IT equipment, because last year the law was adopted saying that seizure may take place only in very certain cases. And last year the courts decided that all equipment should be seized. This is illegal decisions of the courts which took place last year. As concerned cooperation, the cooperation between the Ministry of Internal Affairs, of course I will inform them about your position, about offers for cooperation from your side. And security service office, for many times the administration of the president felt attacks from Russian hackers, or attempts of denial of service, or other attempts on the penetration testing and so on. We see this, and IT specialists understand that the hackers work through Ukrainian providers' IP addresses. You should understand the denial of service, very powerful one, and for this some Ukrainian hacked company website is used. Please inform us in a fast manner immediately. This is our joint task. Not only security service but all IT companies also should defend our country, help in these activities. As concerned responding and reacting, you know that we have agreed about the cooperation, and you remember what happened those days after the committee's meeting. The Ministry of Economic Development held a separate press conference. All ministers started PR activities instead of making real scenes. As concerns the draft law, about which Mr. Shymkiv said there is one mistake in the draft law, there is the draft law can't be conducted because there is one semicolon not in the right place. This change, when you see 500 pages, it is hard to find just one mistake. Unfortunately, our press briefing is about to end. You will have time to talk. You can we can now have a session of questions and answers. Be please very laconic. Evgenia Pangana, Internet UA, small comment about the draft law. You told that the seizure would have be possible if the law enforcement officers will ground why they can't copy information, because you know that law enforcement bodies may say that they do not have money for copying of information. Just to prevent the situations of the last year when the criminal code was amended but the situation was bad. If you open the draft law wording on amending the the criminal procedure code, we immediately and directly and expressly ban seizure of servers, and the investigative bodies are obliged to copy information instead of seizure, and if such copying is impossible due to the reasons which are technical, conditionally. This is for IT companies, the question to address is. Then those objects may be seized, but this will be an extraordinary measure because now all information equipment is seized, and after that the investigative activities are conducted. We oblige, this is an imperative but non-discretional norm when an investigative body can choose. Here, investigative officers are obliged to do something. They can't choose from several options. Only if copying is impossible, then not only investigator but also his line manager and also a judge should issue a special writ to conduct such actions. Only then such actions, seizure of servers, can be possible. I think no. The one thing is to adopt good laws, and this is the matter of the Verkhovna Rada. The other question is who interprets laws. It has never happened in the world that someone wrote the law and there were nobody to implement it. Many articles may be present in the law, but if performers are not honest, no law would help them. Ivan Petukhov, chair of Commission on Science and IT, my question is to Mr. Shymkiv. The main problem you told today, we have many separatist content, much separatist content on the websites of Ukrainian providers. Please tell us specific facts. Who plays such information? And also, for example, I am a separatist with respect to the Soviet Union. Those who are present in Donetsk and Lugansk, their collaborationists. My position about LPR and DPR, their collaboration is, but not separatists. Once again, they are not separatists. I have not finished my communication yet. The war has been declared. No, it hasn't been declared. No war has been declared. Once again, we have a big problem. We do not have declared war. IT experts are ready to defend and to have a warfare. We gathered in 2014 and we believe that collaborationists are present in those areas. the question when the administration of president will draft a resolution about declaration of the war in Crimea, Sebastopol, and several parts of Kherson region. We want this. We want the declaration of war because we experience very big problems. Then we can destroy those resources without any help from the government. We will have the right for this. Okay, I will answer your question. On the occupied territory by Russians, Ukrainian territory, Crimea, the Republic of Crimea, we talking about Donetsk and Lugansk occupied by terrorists. Currently, Donetsk and Lugansk territories are occupied by terrorists, by Russian forces, by Russian troops, and an active propaganda is being conducted from those territories against Ukraine. This is the fact which I think every citizen of Ukraine should do every effort, should put every effort. Today, we have declared anti-terrorist operation, and at the moment, in legal terms, dissemination of content related to terrorists or cooperation with terrorists is punishable by the law. Thank you very much. I think we should end our briefing now because our topic was, I would like to remind, protection of IT business.